The word sliced through the humid Lagos afternoon like a machete through sugarcane. Clean my shoes with your tongue, old woman. That's all you're good for. Adanna Okafor stood frozen in the marble-floored lobby of Meridian Towers, her designer handbag dangling from one manicured hand, her other hand pointing at a hunched elderly beggar wrapped in faded Ankara cloth. The beggar's gray hair peeked from beneath a worn headscarf, her face turned downward in apparent shame. What would you do if you saw someone humiliate an elderly person like this? Hit like if you believe in treating elders with respect, and comment below where you're watching from. I said lick them clean. Adanna's voice rose higher, drawing the attention of everyone passing through the luxury building's entrance. Security guards exchanged uncomfortable glances. A young receptionist covered her mouth in shock. Or do you want me to call the police and have you arrested for begging on private property? The beggar remained silent, trembling. This wasn't the first time Adanna had displayed such cruelty in public. At 32, she had perfected the art of domestic betrayal and emotional manipulation, though no one who saw her immaculate appearance would suspect it. Her marriage to Chukwudi Okafor had given her access to wealth, status, and the kind of power that made people look away when she abused it. But what Adanna didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that the trembling beggar before her was Ngozi Adeola, the 60-year-old CEO of Adeola Enterprises, the very company where Adanna worked as a mid-level marketing manager. Ngozi had spent the last 3 weeks disguised as a beggar, moving through Lagos's streets and office buildings, investigating reports of corruption, infidelity, and abuse within her company. And now she had found something far worse than financial fraud. "Madam, please," one of the security guards finally intervened, his voice cautious. "Maybe we should just let her go. Stay out of this, Ibrahim." Adanna snapped. She turned back to the beggar, her expensive perfume creating an almost obscene contrast with the older woman's dusty appearance. "I've seen you here 3 times this week. You're probably in league with the other beggars, planning to rob decent people like me." The beggar raised her head slightly. Behind the dirt smudge, Chukwudi didn't run to the parking garage. He walked, each step measured and deliberate, the way a man walks when he's trying to hold the pieces of his life together through sheer force of will. Adanna rushed after him, her heels clicking frantically against the marble, her earlier cruelty forgotten in the face of this new threat. The elderly beggar, Ngozi, remained on her knees, watching them go. Ibrahim, the security guard, offered her his hand. "Are you all right, Mama?" he asked softly. "I will be," Ngozi replied, accepting his help to stand. Her knees ached, but the pain was nothing compared to the satisfaction of knowing that justice was coming. "I will be very all right soon." In the parking garage, Chukwudi found exactly what the security radio had reported. His wife's white Mercedes, windows fogged despite the warm Lagos evening. And inside, Beggar, his business partner of 7 years, his best friend since university, the man who had been best man at his wedding. Tund was hastily buttoning his shirt. The emotional manipulation and infidelity in marriage had been happening right under Chukwudi's nose, in the very car he had purchased for Adanna on their 5th anniversary. The co-parenting conflict that would inevitably follow flashed through his mind, their 6-year-old daughter, Chioma, who loved Uncle Tund almost as much as she loved her father. "Chukwudi, please," Adanna gasped, arriving behind him. He held up one hand, silencing her. His voice, when it came, was eerily calm. "Get out of the car, Tund." Tund emerged slowly, his face flushed with shame and alcohol. The smell of expensive whiskey mixed with Adanna's perfume created a nauseating cocktail in the enclosed space. "How long?" Chukwudi asked. Silence. "How long?" The shout echoed through the concrete structure, bouncing off luxury vehicles and oil-stained floors. 2 years, Tund finally whispered. Maybe longer. 2 years. 2 years of lies. 2 years of Saturday dinners where Tund sat at Chukwudi's table, played with his daughter, accepted his hospitality. 2 years of business deals signed in good faith, of shared profits, of brotherhood. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and unspoken prayers. Chukwudi sat beside his mother's bed, holding her hand, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest as machines beeped their reassuring rhythm. Mama Okafor had collapsed at the market, the doctors said. Stress-induced cardiac event. She was stable now, but she needed rest and peace. Peace. The word felt like a cruel joke. His phone vibrated constantly with messages, friends who'd seen the video, business associates expressing concern, lawyers offering services. He ignored them all except one, a text from his sister, Amara, who was flying in from Accra and would arrive by morning. Chukwudi. His mother's voice was weak but clear. Her eyes opened, focusing on him with that sharp maternal gaze that had seen through every lie he'd ever told as a child. "Mama, don't try to talk. You need to rest." "Rest?" She tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. I'll rest when I'm dead. Right now, we need to talk about your wife. You saw the video. Everyone in Lagos has seen the video by now. That girl? Mama Okafor shook her head sadly. I tried to warn you, NWAM. Do you remember? Before the wedding? Chukwudi did remember. His mother had pulled him aside the night before the ceremony, her face troubled. This girl, Adanna, she's not ready. I see something in her eyes. Something hungry. But he'd been in love, or what he'd thought was love. He dismissed his mother's concerns as generational differences, traditional thinking. You were right, Mama. About everything. Being right brings me no joy, my son. Not when it means my grandchild will suffer. Mama Okafor squeezed his hand. But there's something else. Something I should have told you before, but I was afraid. I thought maybe I was wrong. The machines beeped faster as her heart rate increased. Mama, please. Whatever it is can wait. No. Her grip tightened with surprising strength. It can't wait. 2 months ago, I saw Adanna. She was at the Civic Center, having lunch with a woman. They were laughing, holding hands across the table. The woman looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. So I took a photo. She gestured weakly toward her purse on the bedside table. In my phone. Look. Chukwudi found the phone, scrolled through the photos. When he found the image his mother meant, his blood ran cold. Adanna sat at an outdoor table, her fingers intertwined with those of another woman. But this wasn't Tund. This was someone else entirely. Someone whose face Chukwudi recognized from his wife's old university photos. Zainab Musa. Adanna's roommate. You're the woman who gave birth to her, Mrs. Adeyemi interjected coldly. But right now, you're frightening a child. Mr. Okafor has primary custody according to the emergency order filed 2 hours ago. Mrs. Okafor, you need to leave. What order? You can't do this. One of Adanna's lawyers leaned in, whispered something. Her face went from red to white in seconds. The video from the parking garage, the lawyer said loud enough for everyone to hear. Mrs. Adeola released it to the police and the family court. Along with financial records showing you've been embezzling from your husband's accounts. The judge granted Mr. Okafor emergency custody and a restraining order. You can't be within 500 meters of the child or your husband pending the full hearing next week. The domestic betrayal had legal consequences now. Real ones. The kind that stripped away everything Adanna had built her life around. This is your fault, Adanna hissed at Chukwudi. You and that old witch Ngozi, you planned this. You're trying to take everything from me. No, Chukwudi said quietly, Chioma still in his arms. You took everything from yourself. I just documented it. Fine. Adanna's voice rose to a shriek. Keep the brat. Keep everything. But you haven't won, Chukwudi. You have no idea what I'm capable of. You think Tun was the only secret I had? You think that's all there is? She pulled out her phone, her fingers flying over the screen. I just sent something to your email. Something you're going to want to see. Something about your precious mother and why she really collapsed today. Chukwudi's phone chimed. He shifted Chioma to one hip and opened the email with his free hand. The message. The rain started as Chukwudi drove back to the hospital, Chioma asleep in the back seat, her tear-stained face peaceful in slumber. Lagos rain, violent and sudden, turning the city's roads into rivers within minutes. The wipers couldn't keep up. Neither could Chukwudi's mind. A twin brother. Chike. The name echoed in his head like a drum. His phone kept ringing. Ngozi Adeola called 3 times. Tun sent a desperate text, please, brother, let me explain. His lawyer left a voicemail about the restraining order being officially filed. But Chukwudi answered none of them. His entire focus narrowed to one thing, getting to his mother and demanding the truth. The parking garage at Lagos University Teaching Hospital was flooding by the time he arrived. He carried Chioma through the downpour, her small body curled against his chest, protected by his jacket. Inside, the hospital hummed with controlled chaos, nurses rushing between rooms, visitors huddled in waiting areas, the sick and injured filling every available space. Amara met him outside their mother's room. His sister's eyes were red, her usually immaculate appearance disheveled. She'd clearly been crying for hours. She told you? Chukwudi asked. Amara nodded. Some of it. Not everything. She's waiting for you. She reached out to take Chioma. Let me watch her. This conversation isn't for children's ears. Inside the hospital room, Mama Okafor looked impossibly small and old. The machines around her beeped their mechanical lullabies, but she was awake, her eyes fixed on the window where rain streamed down like tears. Mama. She turned her head. When she saw him, her face crumpled. NWAM. My son. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Chukwudi pulled a chair close to her bed. His voice was carefully controlled, but anger simmered beneath. Tell me. All of it. No more lies. No more secrets. Mama Okafor took a shuddering breath. Your father and I, we were young when we married. 20 years old, both of us. We loved each other, but we were poor. So poor. Your father worked 3 jobs, and I sold akara in the market. We lived in one room in Ajigunal, and we dreamed of better. She closed her eyes, remembering. When I got pregnant, we were terrified and thrilled at the same time. A baby meant more expenses, but also hope. A reason to keep fighting. Then at the hospital, they told us, twins. 2 boys. Chike and Chukwudi, he said. Yes. We named you both right there in the delivery room. Chukwudi, the world is made by God. You have to go, Mama Okafor said urgently. NWAM, you have to go to him. Whatever Adanna wants, whatever her game is, you need to meet your brother. And if it's a trap? Then you spring it. But you can't let her take this from you. You've lost enough already. Chukwudi looked at his phone again. In the reflection of the window in the photo, he could see something else, a woman's silhouette. Adanna was there with Chike. She'd gotten to him first. I have to go, Chukwudi said, kissing his mother's forehead. But Mama, when this is over, we're going to have a long conversation about honesty and trust. I know, NWAM. I know. He found Amara in the waiting room, Chioma still asleep in her arms. I need you to stay here with Mama and Chioma. Don't let anyone near them except hospital staff you recognize. Especially not Adanna. Where are you going? To meet our brother. Amara's eyes widened. Brother? Chukwudi, what are you? I'll explain everything later. Just keep them safe. The drive to Eco Hotel took 20 minutes through the rain-soaked streets. Every traffic light felt like an eternity. Every honking horn and swerving Danfo bus tested his patience. His mind raced with scenarios. What would he say to Chike? What would Chike say to him? Did his twin brother even know he had a twin? The hotel lobby was elegant and quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Chukwudi's clothes were still damp from the rain. The receptionist looked at him warily as he headed for the elevators. 12th floor. Room 1247. He stood outside the door for a full minute, his hand raised to knock, his heart hammering. Behind this door was a truth 32 years in the making. Behind this door was family he'd never known, connection he'd been denied, and possibly a trap that would destroy everything. He knocked. The door opened immediately, as if someone had been waiting right behind it. But it wasn't Adanna. It was him. Chike Okoro stood in the doorway, and it was like looking in a mirror. Same height. Same build. Same face, though Chike's was cleanly shaven while Chukwudi wore a beard. They stared at each other in stunned silence. So it's true, Chike finally said. His voice was deeper than Chukwudi's, with an American accent overlaying the Igbo rhythm. I have a twin brother. You didn't know? Not until 3 days ago. A woman contacted me, your wife, I guess. Ex-wife. She told me everything. Showed me documents, photos, birth certificates. I thought she was crazy at first. But then I saw your picture, and... He gestured helplessly at their identical faces. Hard to argue with genetics. Chukwudi pushed past him into the room. Where is she? Where's Adanna? She left an hour ago. Said you'd come, said I should tell you. Chike pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. This. The paper contained Adanna's handwriting, neat and precise. Chukwudi, by the time you read this, I'll be at the airport. I'm leaving Lagos. Leaving Nigeria. You can have your divorce, your custody, your precious reputation. But I wanted you to know what it feels like to have your world turned upside down by secrets and lies. I wanted you to feel a fraction of what I felt when I found out about my own family's betrayals. Yes, I cheated. Yes, I stole. But you know what? Your family isn't innocent either. Ask Chike about his adoptive mother. Ask him who she really was. Ask him about the money. And then ask yourself if you're really any better than me. Goodbye, husband. Give Chioma my love. Or don't. She'll forget me either way. Chukwudi looked up at, so why didn't she? Because I told her I'd go public first. I'd expose my adoptive mother's scheme myself, cooperate with authorities, make sure every victim family got compensation from the estate. I'd make sure the story was about Nena's crimes, not your mother's desperation. Chukwudi stared at this man who was genetically identical to him but had lived an entirely different life. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Because, Chike said simply, I've spent my whole life wondering about my birth family. Wondering if I was wanted. Wondering if I was loved. And then Adanna showed me photos of your mother, our mother, visiting my infant hospital bed. Crying. Kissing my forehead. Looking at me like her heart was breaking. He pulled out his phone, showed Chukwudi a grainy, aged photo. In it, a young Mama Okafor held a tiny baby, her face contorted with grief and love in equal measure. That's not the face of someone who wanted to get rid of me. That's the face of someone making an impossible choice. So yeah, I protected her. I protected you. Family does that, right? The question hung in the air between them. Chukwudi's phone buzzed. Ngozi Adeola again. This time he answered. Mrs. Adeola. Chukwudi, we have a problem. Adanna didn't go to the airport. She went to your house. His blood ran cold. My house is empty. There's nothing there she can. She's not there to take things. She's there to destroy them. My security team just picked up a social media live stream. She's inside your home right now, and she's broadcasting everything. Every private photo, every document, every piece of your life. She's burning it all down, literally. She's set. The smell of smoke hit Chukwudi before he even turned onto his street. Thick, black smoke billowing into the Lagos night sky, visible even from 3 blocks away. Neighbors had gathered on the sidewalks, their phones raised, recording. Fire trucks wailed in the distance, still minutes away but racing closer. His house, the 4-bedroom colonial-style home in Ikoyi that he'd worked a decade to afford, was burning. And on every phone screen in the crowd, Adanna's face smiled with manic glee as she narrated her destruction like a cooking show host. This is where he kept his mother's jewelry. Her voice rang out from a dozen devices simultaneously. The live stream had thousands of viewers now, the numbers climbing every second. Family heirlooms. Passed down for generations. Watch them burn. She held up a velvet box, opened it to show the camera the gold necklaces and coral beads inside, then tossed it into the flames consuming their bedroom. What would you do if you witnessed your home being destroyed in real time? Hit like if you think Adanna has gone too far, and comment where you're watching from. Chukwudi tried to push through the crowd, but hands held him back. Sir, you can't go in there. A security guard from the estate blocked his path. The whole second floor is gone. If you go in now, you'll die. My things, everything, is not worth your life, sir. Please. Chaik appeared beside him, having driven his own rental car to follow Chukwudi from the hotel. Brother, he's right. Look at it. There's nothing you can do. But there was something he could do. Chukwudi pulled out his phone and dialed the number he'd saved earlier, the police inspector handling his domestic betrayal case. Inspector Adiwale, this is Chukwudi Okafor. My wife is burning down my house on social media. You're watching, right? The inspector's voice was grim. Everyone in Lagos is watching, Mr. Okafor. We're en route now. But Mr. Okafor, she's not alone in there. What? Our cyber unit just identified a second heat signature in the house. Someone else is inside with her. We think it's Beggar. Of course. The 2 cheating spouses, partnered in destruction as they'd been partnered in infidelity in marriage. Chukwudi felt a cold rage settle over him, replacing the panic. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was coordinated, planned. They decided if they were going down, they'd take everything with them. On the live stream, Adanna moved to what had been Chukwudi's home office. His law degree from the University of Lagos hung on the wall, already blackened by smoke. This is where he pretended to be so noble, she told her growing audience. The viewer count had hit 50,000. News outlets were picking it up. This was becoming national news in real time. This is where he sat and judged me for my mistakes while hiding his own family sins. She grabbed the degree and held it to the flames until it caught fire. You want to know about family secrets? Let me tell you about the Okafor family. Let me tell you about twin brothers separated at birth. Let me tell you about adoption schemes and human trafficking. Adanna, stop. Tun's voice came from off-camera. This isn't what we agreed. What we agreed? She laughed, spinning to face him, and the camera on her phone captured his face. Tun looked terrified, smoke-stained, desperate. We agreed to a lot of things, Tund. We agreed to love each other. We agreed to leave our spouses and start over together. But you know what? I'm done with agreements. She turned back to the camera. You know what my lover here did? While he was sleeping with me, he was also sleeping with his business partner's secretary. And his neighbor. And probably half of Victoria Island. So much for true love, right? Tun tried to grab the phone from her, but Adanna dodged. The camera view swung wildly, showing flames, smoke, destruction. Get out! Tun shouted. The fire's spreading too fast. We have to get out. Why? So I can go to prison? So I can lose my daughter forever? Adanna's voice broke. If I can't have my life, Chukwudi can't have his. Fair is fair. On the street, Chukwudi watched in horror as the live stream showed Adanna blocking the office door, preventing Tun from leaving. The emotional manipulation extended even to her accomplice. She was willing to kill them both rather than face consequences. Somebody do something, a neighbor shouted. Call the police. They're already coming, someone else answered. But police were minutes away, and the fire was seconds from consuming everything. Chukwudi could see it in the video, flames licking at the office walls, smoke filling the room. Adanna was coughing now, though she still held the camera steady. This is what betrayal looks like, she said to her viewers. This is what happens when you push someone too far. When you expose their secrets, when you take their child, when you destroy their reputation. You think I'm the villain? So did Chukwudi, she said flatly. You didn't care about that when you were sleeping with his wife. The public disgrace had reached its peak. Tens of thousands of people were watching a man realize that his partner in infidelity had never loved him at all. She'd used him, just as she'd used everyone else. One of the firefighters approached Chukwudi. Sir, are you the homeowner? Yes. My wife is inside. And my friend. You have to get them out. We're trying, sir. But she's barricaded the room. We can't, he paused, listening to his radio. Wait. Someone's opened the front door. On the live stream, the locked office door suddenly flew open. Someone had kicked it in from the hallway side. A figure moved through the smoke, too fast for the camera to catch clearly. Get out, a woman's voice commanded. Both of you, now. Adanna spun around, and the camera captured her shocked face. You? What are you doing here? The figure stepped into frame, and Chukwudi's jaw dropped. Ngozi Adeola stood in the burning house, a wet cloth wrapped around her face, her eyes fierce and determined. The elderly CEO who'd pretended to be a beggar, who'd endured Adanna's cruelty, who'd built a business empire through decades of hard work, she'd run into a burning building to save the people who'd tried to destroy her reputation. I'm saving your miserable life, Ngozi said. She grabbed Adanna's arm with surprising strength. Move! But Adanna resisted. Why? Why would you save me? Because I'm not you. Ngozi shoved her toward the door where Tund waited, coughing and desperate. Because I believe in justice, not revenge. Because that little girl you abandoned deserves to know her mother went to prison, not that she died in a fire she set herself. Now move. The ceiling groaned ominously. A beam cracked, showering sparks. Ngozi pushed both Adanna and Tund into the hallway, then followed. The live stream went dark as Adanna's phone finally died, but the crowd on the street could see them emerging from the front door, 3 figures stumbling through smoke, coughing, alive. Firefighters rushed forward with blankets and oxygen masks. Police moved in with handcuffs. And Chukwudi ran to Ngozi, this woman who'd shown more humanity in 5 minutes than anyone else in this entire nightmare. Mrs. Adeola, why, how? I was in the neighborhood, she said, her voice hoarse from smoke. Coming to check on you after the business with your brother. Saw the smoke. Saw the crowd. Heard what was happening. She accepted an oxygen mask from a paramedic but pushed it aside after a few breaths. That woman is cruel, destructive, and mentally unstable. But she doesn't deserve to die. And neither does that fool who loved her. Inspector Adiwale approached with his officers. Mrs. Okafor, Mr. Beggar, you're both under arrest for arson, destruction of property, and reckless endangerment. You have the right to remain. Wait, Adanna interrupted, her voice weak. She looked at Chukwudi, really looked at him for the first time in what felt like years. I need to say something. Before they take me. The inspector nodded. Make it quick. Adanna stepped closer to Chukwudi, close enough that he could smell the smoke in her hair, could see the exhaustion and defeat in her eyes. I lied. In the note I left for you. About Chioma. His heart stopped. What about Chioma? She's not yours. The words landed like bullets. The crowd went silent. Even the firefighters paused in their work. What? Chioma. She's not your biological daughter. She's Tund's. Adanna's voice was matter-of-fact, as if she was reporting the weather. I got pregnant during one of our first affairs, 7 years ago. I didn't know whose baby it was at first, yours or his. So I had a paternity test done after she was born. Tund's name was on the results. Chukwudi couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The emotional manipulation had reached depths he'd never imagined. 6 years. 6 years of loving a child, raising her, calling her his daughter. 6 years of birthdays and bedtime stories and skin knees and father-daughter dances. All based on a lie. You knew? He looked at Tund, who wouldn't meet his eyes. You both knew? I'm sorry, Tund whispered. Your daughter is yours. Biology doesn't make a parent. Love makes a parent. You've been Chioma's father for 6 years. You've changed her diapers, taught her to ride a bike, kissed her scraped knees. That little girl loves you. She calls you daddy. A DNA test doesn't change that. But legally, you're probably still her father. You're on the birth certificate, yes? You've been acting as her parent since birth? Any family court in Nigeria will recognize that. Especially given the circumstances of how you found out. Ngozi's voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt. Don't let Adanna's final act of domestic betrayal rob you of your daughter. Don't let her win that way. Chike nodded agreement. She's right, brother. I grew up with parents who weren't biologically mine, and they were still my parents. Real family is about choice and commitment, not genetics. Chukwudi wanted to believe them. But the shock was too fresh, the wound too raw. He looked at the smoldering ruins of his house, thought about his mother in the hospital, thought about the twin brother he'd just met, thought about the wife who'd betrayed him in every possible way. And then he thought about Chioma. Sweet, innocent Chioma, who'd drawn pictures of her family with hearts. Who'd run to him crying just hours ago. Who called him daddy and meant it with every fiber of her 6-year-old heart. I need to see her, he said suddenly. I need to see my daughter. Because no matter what Adanna had said, no matter what any DNA test might show, Chioma was his daughter. And he was her father. That was the only truth that mattered. His phone rang. The hospital. Mr. Okafor? This is Nurse Abiola from LUTH. Your mother is asking for you. And sir, your daughter is awake. She's very upset. She's asking for her daddy. I'm on my way. As he turned to leave, Inspector Adiwale called out. Mr. Okafor. One more thing. We found something in your wife's car. A plane ticket. She wasn't just planning to run, she was planning to take Chioma with her. To Dubai, tonight. We found a fake passport for the child, new identity documents, everything. The final piece of Adanna's plan revealed itself. She hadn't just wanted to destroy Chukwudi's life, she'd wanted to steal his daughter in the process. The infidelity in marriage had been just the beginning. She'd been planning this endgame for months, maybe years. Thank you, Inspector. Thank you. The drive to the hospital was surreal. Chike insisted on coming, his twin brother support somehow comforting despite how new their relationship was. Behind them, the smoke from Chukwudi's destroyed home created an orange glow against the night sky. Legos hummed around them, generators sputtering to life as NEPA failed again, late-night vendors selling suya and plantain, the endless symphony of horns and voices that was Africa's megacity. Life continued, indifferent to personal catastrophe. At the hospital, Amara met them with red eyes. She knows, she said simply. Chioma knows about the fire. She saw it on someone's phone before I could stop her. She saw mommy on the video. Chukwudi's heart sank. How is she? Confused. Scared. Asking questions I can't answer. Amara looked at Chike, did a double take at his identical features, but was too exhausted to comment. She needs you. Chioma sat on a hospital cot next to Mama Okafor's bed, her small body rigid with tension, her eyes huge in her tear-stained face. When she saw Chukwudi, she launched herself at him with such force that he staggered. Daddy, why did mommy burn our house? Why was she so angry? He held her tight, felt her small heart racing against his chest. I don't know, baby girl. Mommy made some bad choices. But you're safe now. We're all safe. Is mommy going to jail? There was no point in lying. Yes, she is. Good. The word was so cold, so adult coming from a 6-year-old's mouth, that everyone in the room flinched. Dawn broke over Lagos with the kind of golden light that made people forget, for just a moment, that the city could be cruel. Chukwudi hadn't slept. He'd spent the night in the hospital, alternating between his mother's room and a quiet corner where he'd made endless phone calls, to lawyers, insurance companies, his bank, and finally, to a therapist who specialized in children and trauma. Chioma needed help. They all did. Now, at 7 in the morning, he sat across from Inspector Adiwale in a police station conference room that smelled of stale coffee and broken dreams. Between them lay a stack of documents that Adanna had provided as part of her confession. This is bigger than domestic issues, Mr. Okafor, the inspector said, tapping the files. Much bigger. Your wife wasn't just stealing from you and Mrs. Adila's company. She was part of an organized network that's been operating in Lagos for at least 5 years. Chukwudi's exhaustion made it hard to process. What kind of network? Money laundering, primarily. But also identity fraud, document forgery, and, Inspector Adiwale hesitated. This is where it connects to your family story. Adoption fraud. The room seemed to tilt. What? The woman who adopted your twin brother, Nena Okoro? She wasn't working alone. She was part of a larger organization that facilitated illegal adoptions across West Africa. Your wife discovered this while investigating your family background. But instead of reporting it, she tried to use it for blackmail. And when that didn't work, she tried to sell the information to the highest bidder. Sell it? To who? Families who want to cover up their involvement. Wealthy people who adopted children through Nena's network and don't want it exposed. Your wife was going to make millions by either exposing them or protecting them, depending on who paid more. The emotional manipulation had extended far beyond one marriage. Adanna had been willing to weaponize the pain of dozens of families, to profit from the trauma of separated siblings and desperate parents. She wants a deal, Inspector Adiwale continued. She'll testify against the network's leadership, provide all her documentation and evidence, help us prosecute. In exchange, she wants a reduced sentence. Maybe 5 to 7 years instead of 20. And what do you want from me? Your blessing, I suppose. You're the primary victim in the domestic case. The judge will want to know your position. The inspector leaned forward. Personally? I think we should take the deal. The people running this network are monsters. They've separated hundreds of families. With Mrs. Okafor's testimony, we can bring them all down. Chukwudi thought about Chike, raised an ocean away from his birth family. He thought about the 50 other children Nena had trafficked. He thought about all the parents like his mother and father, forced by poverty to make impossible choices. What happens to Chioma in this scenario? She stays with you. Mrs. Okafor is willing to terminate her parental rights as part of the deal. Full custody to you, no contest. The irony was bitter. Adanna was willing to give up the daughter who wasn't even Chukwudi's biological child. The co-parenting conflict would be resolved not through courts and custody battles, but through abandonment. I need to think about it. You have until tomorrow morning. The prosecutor needs to know. Chukwudi left the police station and drove to Ngozi Adila's corporate headquarters in Victoria Island. She'd texted him an hour earlier, "We need to talk. About your future and mine." Her office occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming glass tower. Despite the early hour, despite having been briefly hospitalized for smoke inhalation the night before, Ngozi sat behind her massive desk looking imperious and unshakable. This was a woman who'd built an empire, who'd survived being humiliated by Adanna, who'd run into a burning building to save lives. "Sit," she commanded, and Chukwudi sat. "I've been thinking about what happened," Ngozi began without preamble. "About how my company was vulnerable to the kind of betrayal your wife orchestrated. About how my security systems failed. About how I had to pretend to be a beggar just to see the truth of my own organization." She pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. "I'm restructuring the entire company. New leadership, new systems, new accountability measures. And I want you to head the legal and compliance division." Chukwudi stared at her. "Mrs. Adeola, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not even a corporate lawyer. I do family law, divorce cases." "Exactly. You understand betrayal. You understand how people hide their true natures. You understand what happens when trust breaks down." Ngozi's eyes were fierce. "I need someone who won't look away when things get uncomfortable. Someone who's been through the fire, literally, and came out still believing in justice. I have a daughter to think about now. A mother recovering from a heart incident. A twin brother I just met. My life is chaos. All the more reason to have stability. A good job, good salary, good benefits. Flexible hours so you can parent properly." She named a figure that made Chukwudi's eyes widen. "Plus counseling services for your entire family, covered by the company. Plus a housing allowance while you rebuild." It was more than generous. It was life-changing. But something in Chukwudi hesitated. "Why?" he asked. "Why me, really?" Ngozi was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Because yesterday, when I told you to go to the hospital, you went. Even though your house was burning, even though your wife was destroying everything you owned, you went to your daughter. You chose family over revenge. That's the kind of person I want working for me." Before Chukwudi could respond, his phone rang. "Chike. Brother, you need to come back to the hospital. Now. It's Mama, she's asking for both of us. And she's ready to tell us everything. About the adoption, about what really happened. All of it. I'm on my way." Ngozi nodded understanding. "Think about my offer. You have a week to decide." Back at the hospital, Chukwudi found his mother sitting up in bed, looking stronger than she had since the collapse. Chike sat in one chair, Amara in another. Chioma was at school. Chukwudi had enrolled her in the company daycare temporarily, where therapists could monitor her and help her process the trauma. "My sons," Mama Okafor said, looking between the two identical faces. "Both of you here. I never thought I'd see this day." "Mama, you don't have to," Chukwudi started. "Yes. I do." She took a deep breath. "Chike deserves to know everything. You deserve to know everything. No more secrets. No more lies." She told them about the poverty of those early years, about the one-room apartment in Ajagunal where water came twice a week and electricity was a luxury. She told them about their father working himself to exhaustion, about her selling akara from dawn to dusk while pregnant. When they told me it was twins, I cried, she said. Happy tears and terrified tears all mixed together. 2 babies meant twice the love but also twice the cost. We were barely surviving as it was. She described the birth, long, difficult, dangerous. Chukwudi had come first, healthy and screaming. Chike had come second, small and silent, his lungs struggling to work. The first week was the worst, Mama Okafor continued, her voice thick with memory. Every day we thought we'd lose you, Chike. Every day the doctors said maybe tomorrow. And we couldn't pay the bills. The hospital kept threatening to discharge you, sick or not, if we didn't pay. That's when Nena Okoro had appeared. Wealthy, elegant, sympathetic. She'd offered to pay for everything, all of Chike's medical care, in exchange for just talking about adoption. At first, we said no immediately, Mama Okafor said. We said we'd find a way. But then the bills kept growing. And Nena kept coming back. She'd sit with me while I held you both. She'd tell me about her house, her life, how she could give one of you every advantage. Education. Healthcare. Travel. Everything we couldn't provide. She manipulated you, Chike said softly. Yes. But I let her. That's what I have to live with. Tears rolled down Mama Okafor's cheeks. She showed us photos of her home. A mansion in Victoria Island with gardens and a pool. She told us about the private schools, the university funds. And then she made her final offer, 1 million naira. In 1995, that was everything. That was a new life. 1 million naira. Chukwudi did the math, equivalent to maybe 3 million today. A fortune to desperately poor parents. Barely a year's salary to someone like Nena. Your father and I, we argued for days. We cried. We prayed. And finally, we decided that if we kept you both, you might both die. The conditions we lived in, the water, the disease, the malnutrition, it was killing us slowly. But if we gave you up, Chike, you'd live. You'd thrive. And we'd have money to give Chukwudi a better life too. She looked directly at Chike. We thought we were saving you. That's what we told ourselves. That we were being good parents by giving you a better life. But the truth is, we were also saving ourselves. We were taking the money. We were choosing the easier path. Did you ever regret it? Chike asked. His voice wasn't accusing, just curious. Every single day. Mama Okafor's voice broke. Every time Chukwudi learned to walk, I wondered if you were walking too. Every first day of school, I wondered about yours. Every birthday, I lit a candle for 2 sons even though everyone thought I only had one. She reached out both hands, one to each son. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a choice out of fear and desperation, and it cost us all 32 years of being a family. I can't undo it. I can only ask for forgiveness. Chukwudi took his mother's hand. After a moment, so did Chike. Mama, Chike said slowly, I had a good life. Rich parents, good education, every opportunity. But I also spent my whole life feeling like something was missing. Like there was a hole I couldn't fill. Now I know what it was this. It was family. It was a brother I never knew I had. He looked at Chukwudi. I'm angry about the years we lost. But I'm also grateful for the life I got to live. Both things can be true, right? Both things can be true, Chukwudi agreed. Amara, who'd been silent through the whole conversation, suddenly spoke up. Mama, did you ever think about telling us? When we were older, when things were better financially. Mama Okafor nodded slowly. Many times. But the longer we waited, the harder it became. How do you tell your son he has a twin brother? How do you explain that you sold him? Because that's what people would say, that we sold our child. First, Adanna terminates all parental rights to Chioma. No visitation, no contact, nothing. Clean break. And second, part of her testimony has to be public. Other families who lost children to this network need to be able to search for them. She helps create a database, a registry, whatever it takes. I'll make it happen. Thank you, Mr. Okafor. After he hung up, Chike said, you know what this means? Adanna gets a lighter sentence. She gets to walk out of prison eventually. I know. But she has to live with what she did for the rest of her life. She has to live with abandoning her daughter. She has to live with being the wicked wife of Lagos that everyone saw on that video. Sometimes the punishment isn't prison time, it's the person you become and the life you have to live afterward. His phone buzzed with a text from Ngozi, board meeting in 1 hour. I'm presenting my findings on the embezzlement. Your wife's former lover, Tun Beggar, is here with his lawyer. Thought you'd want to know. Chukwudi showed the message to his family. I have to go. One more piece of this nightmare to close out. We'll be here, Mama Okafor said. We're family. That's what family does. As Chukwudi stood to leave, Chike stood too. I'm coming with you. Twin brother support, remember? The Adeola Enterprises boardroom was packed. 20 executives sat around a massive table, their faces grim. Tund Beggar sat in one corner with 2 lawyers, looking like he'd aged a decade overnight. Ngozi stood at the head of the table, a presentation already loaded on the screen behind her. When Chukwudi and Chike entered, everyone did a double take at their identical faces. Whispers rippled through the room. Gentlemen, Ngozi said, gesturing to them, this is Chukwudi Okafor and his brother Chike. Some of you know Chukwudi's story from the news. What you might not know is that his story intersects with this company's future in important ways. She clicked to the first slide, financial records showing Adanna's embezzlement. For the past 2 years, Mrs. Adanna Okafor and Mr. Tund Beggar, who was our head of business development, conspired to steal from this company. They used Mrs. Okafor's position in marketing to access client accounts, and Mr. Beggar's position to authorize fraudulent transfers. Total amount stolen, 47 million naira. Gasps around the table. Tund's face went gray. But the theft was just one aspect of their crimes, Ngozi continued. They also sold confidential information to competitors. They sabotaged deals to benefit companies that were paying them kickbacks. They turned this organization into their personal piggy bank while laughing about it. She clicked to another slide, screenshots of text messages between Adanna and Tund. Messages that showed not just their affair but their contempt for everyone around them. Messages calling Chukwudi a fool and Ngozi a dried-up old woman who should retire. I saw these messages, Ngozi said coldly, after I spent 3 weeks disguised as a beggar, watching this company from the ground up. I saw Mrs. Okafor try to humiliate me. I saw the toxic culture that allowed these two to operate with impunity. And I saw good people, people like Chukwudi, suffer because we didn't have proper oversight. She turned to Tund. Mr. Beggar, you're fired effective immediately. Security will escort you out after this meeting. We're filing criminal charges and civil suits to recover every penny you stole. Your reputation in this industry is finished. Tund's lawyer started to protest, but Ngozi held up her hand. Save it. We have video evidence, financial records, and witness testimony. You have no defense. Then she turned to the board. As for this company, we're implementing new controls immediately. We're hiring Chukwudi Okafor to head our new legal and compliance division. And we're partnering with law enforcement to help investigate the larger criminal network that his wife exposed. One of the board members raised his hand. Mrs. Adeola, with all due respect, isn't hiring Mr. Okafor a conflict of interest? Given that his ex-wife, Ngozi interrupted, who betrayed him as thoroughly as she betrayed this company. Mr. Okafor is a victim here, not a perpetrator. And he's exactly the kind of person we need, someone who understands betrayal, who won't look away from uncomfortable truths, who puts integrity above convenience. She looked at Chukwudi. Unless you've changed your mind about my offer? Every eye in the room turned to him. This was the moment. Take the job and rebuild his life in the public eye, or walk away and start completely fresh somewhere else. He thought about Chioma, who needed stability. He thought about his mother, who needed to see him succeed after everything they'd been through. He thought about Chike, his twin brother, who'd flown across an ocean and might stay in Lagos if there was family worth staying for. I accept, Chukwudi said. On the condition that my first project is helping create that registry for families separated by adoption fraud. I want to use this company's resources to do something good. Ngozi smiled. Done. Welcome to Adeola Enterprises. As security escorted Tund out, the man who'd been Chukwudi's best friend, business partner, and ultimate betrayer, Tund paused at the door. Chukwudi, he said, his voice breaking. I know you'll never forgive me. But I need you to know, I did love her. It wasn't just about sex or money. I actually loved Adanna. Chukwudi looked at the man who'd destroyed his marriage, traumatized his daughter, and stolen years of his life. That makes it worse, Tund. Not better. You knew what you were doing was wrong, and you did it anyway because of love? That's not an excuse. That's just proof that your love was selfish. Tund had no response to that. Security pulled him away. After the meeting ended, Chike pulled Chukwudi aside. Brother, I've been thinking. My job in Houston can be done remotely. My lease is month to month. What if I stayed in Lagos for a while? Got to know you, Mama, Amara, my niece. What if we tried to be the family we should have been all along? Chukwudi felt something crack open in his chest, something warm and hopeful and terrifying. I'd like that. I'd really like that. They were about to leave when Chukwudi's phone rang. The school. His heart immediately jumped to panic mode. Mr. Okafor? This is Principal Adeyemi. Don't worry, Chioma is fine. But something happened you should know about. Another child said something cruel to her, about her mother, about the video that went viral. And Chioma, well, she handled it in an interesting way. What did she do? She told the other child that her daddy taught her that people who are hurt sometimes hurt others, but that doesn't make it okay. Then she walked away and played with someone else. Mr. Okafor, your daughter is 6 years old and she's already wiser than most adults I know. After hanging up, Chukwudi relayed the story to Chike. His twin brother laughed. That's genetics for you. Smart runs in the Okafor family. Or maybe it's just survival, Chukwudi said. We're all just trying to survive and make sense of the damage done to us. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert, breaking, former CEO's adoption scheme exposed, hundreds of families may have been affected. The story was everywhere now. National news. International news. The domestic betrayal that had started with one woman's cruelty to a beggar had snowballed into something that would change laws, reunite families, and bring justice to people who'd waited decades for it. We should go see Chioma, Chukwudi said. She should hear about all this from us, not from the internet. As they walked out of the building into the Lagos afternoon, Chike said, you know what's crazy? A week ago, I didn't know you existed. Now you're my brother, and I'm helping you pick up your daughter from school. Life is strange. Life is stranger than strange, Chukwudi agreed. But maybe that's okay. Maybe strange is better than the fake normal I was living in with Adanna. They picked up Chioma together, and she was delighted to meet Daddy's twin, properly. She insisted on holding both their hands as they walked to the car, chattering about her day, about the mean kid who'd apologized, about the picture she'd drawn in art class. It's our new family, she announced, showing them the drawing. Daddy, Uncle Chike, Grandma, Auntie Amara, and me. No mommy. Is that okay? Chukwudi knelt down to her level. Baby girl, that's more than okay. Family isn't always about who's there from the beginning. Sometimes it's about who stays when things get hard. Are you staying, Daddy? Forever and ever. Good. She hugged him tight. Because you're the best daddy in the whole world. Even if mommy says you're not my real daddy. You're real to me. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. Mommy told you that? Chioma nodded against his shoulder. Last week. She said Uncle Tun was my real daddy and you were just the one who didn't know. But I don't care. You're my real daddy because you love me and you're here and you make me pancakes on Saturdays. Chukwudi looked up at Chike, who had tears in his eyes. Here was the final betrayal. Adanna had told their daughter the truth, weaponizing it, trying to destroy even the parent-child bond. But it had backfired. Chioma had chosen love over biology. You're right, baby girl, Chukwudi said, his voice thick with emotion. I am your real daddy. And nothing will ever change that. That night, the whole family gathered in Mama Okafor's hospital room for dinner. Amara had brought jollof rice and chicken from a nearby restaurant. Chioma sat on the hospital bed next to her grandmother, chattering away about her day. Chike told stories about growing up in America, about university, about his job. They were still strangers in many ways, still learning each other. But they were family. Real family. The kind that chose to be together. Chukwudi's phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. Mr. Okafor, this is Zainab Musa. Adanna's friend. I saw the news. I'm so sorry for my part in the hurt caused to your family. I want you to know that Adanna and I were never really together, she used me the way she used everyone. I'm willing to testify to that if it helps your custody case. You seem like a good father. Chioma is lucky to have you. He showed the message to Chike. Should I respond? That's up to you. But I'd say yes. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It just means not letting their betrayal define your future. Chukwudi typed a simple response, thank you for your honesty. I hope you find peace. Then he put his phone away and rejoined his family. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, legal battles, rebuilding his home, starting a new job, helping create the registry. But tonight, in this hospital room with people who loved him, he was exactly where he needed to be. The story could have ended in destruction. Instead, it was ending in reconstruction. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and honest and moving forward. That was enough. 3 months later, Lagos was preparing for Christmas. The city sparkled with decorations, markets overflowed with gifts and food, and the air buzzed with that peculiar energy that came when millions of people simultaneously celebrated survival and hope. Chukwudi stood in his new house, a modest 3-bedroom in Lekki, not as grand as the one that had burned, but comfortable and safe. Chioma's room was painted purple at her insistence, filled with toys and books and drawings she'd made in therapy. The living room held photos, his parents' wedding picture, Chioma's first day at her new school, and a new addition, a photo of him and Chike standing side by side, identical smiles on identical faces. His mother had recovered fully and now lived in a small apartment nearby that Chukwudi had rented for her. Amara visited from Accra monthly. Chike had officially relocated to Lagos, taking a position at an international law firm and spending every weekend with his newfound family. The adoption fraud registry had launched 2 weeks ago. In that short time, over 200 families had registered, searching for children they'd lost decades ago. 12 reunions had already happened, including one where siblings separated for 40 years met for the first time at Lagos Airport and collapsed into each other's arms. The video had gone viral, a good viral, a healing viral. Today was special for a different reason. Today was Chioma's 7th birthday, and today was also the day Adanna's sentencing hearing was scheduled. Chukwudi had debated whether to attend. Part of him wanted to face her one last time, to look her in the eye as the judge handed down her punishment. But another part, the healthier part, his therapist said, just wanted to let her go. To release the anger and hurt and betrayal and focus on building rather than destroying. In the end, he decided to attend. Not for revenge, but for closure. The Lagos Federal High Court was crowded with journalists, spectators, and families affected by the adoption network. Adanna's testimony had been instrumental in bringing down 17 people involved in the scheme, including lawyers, doctors, and government officials who'd falsified documents. It was the biggest human trafficking case in Nigerian history. Chukwudi sat in the gallery with Chike beside him. Ngozi Adeola sat a few rows back, having insisted on coming to support him. Inspector Adiwale sat in the front row, ready to present the prosecution's case. When they brought Adanna in, Chukwudi barely recognized her. 3 months in custody had stripped away the polish, the designer clothes, the carefully maintained facade. She wore prison orange, her hair was pulled back simply, and her face was bare of makeup. She looked younger and older at the same time, younger without the artifice, older with the weight of her choices visible in every line. Her eyes scanned the courtroom and landed on Chukwudi. For a moment, something flickered across her face, regret, maybe, or shame, or just exhaustion. Then she looked away. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the case file. Mrs. Adanna Okafor, you have pleaded guilty to charges of embezzlement, arson, child endangerment, and conspiracy to commit fraud. In exchange for your cooperation with authorities, the prosecution has recommended a reduced sentence. However, this court must balance that cooperation against the severity of your crimes and the harm you caused. She looked directly at Adanna. You stole from your employer and your spouse. You committed adultery and lied to your husband about your daughter's paternity. You set fire to your family home while your child was in distress. You attempted to kidnap your daughter and flee the country. And you blackmailed multiple families using information about their adoptions. Adanna stood silent, her head bowed. However, the judge continued, your testimony has led to the arrest and prosecution of 17 individuals involved in a criminal enterprise that has harmed hundreds of families over decades. Your cooperation has enabled reunions between parents and children separated for years. That weighs in your favor. The courtroom held its collective breath. This court sentences you to 10 years in prison, with possibility of parole after 6 years. You will also pay restitution totaling 63 million naira to your victims. And you have agreed to permanently terminate your parental rights to Chioma Okafor, correct? Yes, Your Honor, Adanna said, her voice barely audible. Then let it be recorded. Mr. Chukwudi Okafor is granted sole legal custody with no visitation rights for the biological or former legal mother. The judge's gavel came down with finality. As guards moved to escort Adanna out, she turned and looked at Chukwudi one last time. Their eyes met across the courtroom. He saw in her face the woman he'd married 8 years ago, the woman he'd loved, the woman who'd become a stranger. And then he saw something else, a plea for understanding, for forgiveness, for some acknowledgement that she was more than her worst choices. Chukwudi gave her a small nod. Not forgiveness, exactly. Just acknowledgement. She existed. She had been part of his life. And now she wasn't anymore. She nodded back, and then she was gone. Outside the courthouse, journalists swarmed. Mr. Okafor, how do you feel about the sentence? Mr. Okafor, what will you tell your daughter? Mr. Okafor, do you forgive your ex-wife? Chukwudi raised his hand for quiet. Cameras clicked and whirred. My ex-wife made terrible choices that hurt many people, including our daughter. But her testimony also helped reunite families and bring criminals to justice. I think the sentence is fair. As for what I'll tell my daughter, I'll tell her the truth, in age-appropriate ways, when she's ready to hear it. And forgiveness? That's not something I can force or fake. Maybe someday. Maybe never. But I'm not carrying anger anymore. I'm carrying hope. What hope? Hope that no more families have to make the choice my parents made. Hope that poverty stops being an excuse to separate children from their parents. Hope that my daughter grows up in a world that values integrity over image, character over status. He looked at Chike. And hope that the family we choose is just as valid as the family we're born into. More questions flew, but Ngozi's security team cleared a path to the car. As they drove away from the courthouse, Chike said, "That was good. Really good." "Was it true?" "Which part?" "All of it. Any of it." Chukwudi rubbed his face tiredly. "I still wake up angry sometimes. I still think about what she did, what they all did. I'm not sure I'll ever really forgive." "Then don't," Chike said simply. "But don't let unforgiveness poison you either. There's a middle ground, accepting what happened, learning from it, and moving forward without carrying hatred. That's not the same as forgiveness, but it might be enough." They drove to Chioma's school to pick her up. She came running out with her backpack bouncing, a huge smile on her face, completely unaware that her mother had just been sentenced to a decade in prison. Maybe they'd tell her tonight, maybe not. That was a decision for Chukwudi and his therapist to make together. "Daddy. Uncle Chike." She hugged them both. "Are we having my party now?" "Yes, baby girl. Everyone's waiting at home." The party was small, just family and a few of Chioma's classmates. But it was joyful, filled with laughter and cake and games. Mama Okafor sat in a place of honor, her health fully restored, watching her granddaughter open presents with undisguised delight. Amara had flown in from Accra with her own 2 children, Chioma's cousins, who ran around the house in a screaming pack of 7-year-old energy. Ngozi Adeola stopped by briefly with a ridiculously expensive gift, a laptop for when she's older and ready to code, she explained. As the sun set and the party wound down, Chukwudi found himself on the balcony with Chike, watching the Lagos skyline light up against the darkening sky. "You know what's wild?" Chike said. 6 months ago, I was in Houston thinking about whether to make partner at my firm. That was my biggest concern, career advancement. Now I'm in Lagos, I have a twin brother, a niece, a complicated family history, and I'm helping reunite separated siblings. My life completely changed. Is that good or bad? It's real. That's what it is. Real and messy and complicated. But real. Chike took a sip of his drink. I've been thinking about something, though. Something I wanted to run by you. What's that? The registry we created, it's working, right? Families are finding each other. But what happens after? What support do they get? What if we started something, a foundation, maybe? Help families with reunion costs, therapy, legal issues. Make it more than just a database. Chukwudi turned to look at his brother. That's actually brilliant. A foundation. The Okafor Foundation? Or the Twins Foundation? Or the Second Chances Foundation? We can workshop the name. Chike grinned. Point is, we could do real good. Turn our family's pain into something that helps others. I love it. Let's do it. They shook hands, then laughed at the formality of it and hugged instead. 2 men who shared DNA but had lived separate lives, now choosing to build something together. Inside, Chioma was showing Mama Okafor a picture she'd drawn, a family tree with branches spreading wide, names written in her careful 7-year-old handwriting. At the top, my family. Below, Daddy, Uncle Chike, Grandma, Auntie Amara, and cousins. And in the corner, in smaller letters, Mommy, far away. She included her, Mama Okafor said softly as Chukwudi came inside. Even after everything. Kids are more forgiving than adults, Chukwudi said. Maybe we should learn from them. That night, after everyone had gone home and Chioma was asleep, Chukwudi sat in his home office reviewing paperwork for the foundation. His phone buzzed with an email from the prison system. You have been listed as an authorized correspondent for inmate Adanna Okafor. Would you like to accept or decline? He stared at the message for a long time. Accepting meant Adanna could write to him, could try to communicate, could potentially try to rebuild some connection, not romantic, but human. Declining meant complete severance, final closure, an absolute end. Neither option was easy. He thought about Chioma, who'd included Mommy, far away, in her family tree. He thought about forgiveness and healing and what was best for everyone involved. He thought about the years ahead and what kind of man he wanted to be. Finally, he clicked, accept. Not because he owed Adanna anything. Not because he forgave her completely. But because complete severance felt like carrying her betrayal forever. This way, if she wanted to genuinely apologize, genuinely change, genuinely become someone better, there was a path. A difficult, narrow, uncertain path, but a path. Maybe she'd never use it. Maybe she'd try to manipulate him again. But that was her choice to make, and his choice would be how to respond. He closed the laptop and went to check on Chioma. She slept peacefully, her nightlight casting stars across the ceiling, her stuffed animals arranged protectively around her pillow. On her bedside table sat the drawing of her family tree. Chukwudi picked it up, studying the branches, the names, the careful inclusion of people who loved her and the painful notation of someone who'd hurt her. This was Chioma's way of making sense of her world, not by pretending her mother didn't exist, but by placing her in context. Far away. Not central. But acknowledged. Maybe that was the answer to everything. The next morning, Chukwudi went to his new office at Adeola Enterprises. The plaque on his door read, Chukwudi Okafor, Director of Legal Compliance and Family Services. It still felt surreal. His assistant greeted him with a stack of messages and a reminder about his 10 o'clock meeting. The job was demanding, meaningful, and exactly what he needed to rebuild his life. But first, there was something else he needed to do. He pulled out his phone and called Inspector Adiwale. Inspector, it's Chukwudi. I have a question about the registry. How many families are still searching? Last count? 147 registered searches with no matches yet. Why? Because I want to expand it. Make it international. Partner with organizations in other countries. If Nena's network operated across borders, then families might be searching across borders too. That's ambitious. That's necessary. Chukwudi pulled up the foundation documents he and Chike had started drafting. My brother and I are starting a foundation to support separated families. We want to work with your office, with Interpol, with adoption agencies, anyone who can help. Inspector Adiwale was quiet for a moment. You know what? After everything you've been through, most people would just want to forget and move on. But here you are, trying to help others. That's real character, Mr. Okafor. After the call ended, Chukwudi sat back in his chair and looked out the window at Lagos sprawling below him. Somewhere in this city of 20 million people, families were broken and searching. Somewhere, children who'd been adopted were wondering about their origins. Somewhere, parents who'd made impossible choices were living with decades of grief. His phone rang. Chike. Brother, I just got off the phone with a reporter from CNN. I know. It's your call. But think about it, how many people out there have family secrets they're too ashamed to confront? How many people need to hear that it's okay to have a messy, complicated story? That redemption is possible even when things seem destroyed? Let me think about it. But even as he said it, Chukwudi knew what his answer would be. Because silence protected perpetrators. Silence let people like Nena Okoro operate in shadows. Silence meant other families would suffer what his had suffered. Speaking up was terrifying. But it was also necessary. That afternoon, Chukwudi picked up Chioma from school as usual. As they drove home, she chattered about her day, about the math test she'd aced, about the friend who'd shared her lunch. Daddy, she said suddenly. Can I ask you something? Anything, baby girl. When I'm older, like grown-up older, can I meet mommy? Just once? Just to ask her why? Chukwudi's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His therapist had warned him this question would come eventually. Kids needed to make sense of abandonment, needed to understand why their parents made the choices they made. Maybe, he said carefully. When you're older and if you still want to and if she's someone safe to meet. But Chioma, you need to understand something. People do hurtful things for a lot of reasons, and sometimes those reasons don't make sense even to them. Your mommy made very bad choices that hurt a lot of people. But that doesn't mean you're bad. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Okay? I know, Daddy. My therapist lady told me that too. She said sometimes people are broken and they break other people, but I don't have to be broken just because mommy was. 7 years old and already wiser than most adults. Chukwudi blinked back tears. That's exactly right, baby girl. When they got home, there was a package waiting on the doorstep. No return address, just Chukwudi's name written in familiar handwriting. His stomach clenched. He recognized that handwriting. After getting Chioma settled with a snack and her homework, he took the package to his bedroom and opened it carefully. Inside was a simple notebook, the kind you could buy at any market stall. And inside the notebook, page after page of writing. A letter. A long, painful, honest letter from Adanna. Chukwudi. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But I need to explain, not because it excuses what I did, but because you deserve to understand. And maybe someday, when Chioma is old enough to ask questions, you can help her understand too. I grew up in a home where my mother beat me for being anything other than invisible. My father left when I was 5, and my mother blamed me. She said I was too pretty, that I attracted the wrong kind of attention, that I ruined her marriage. So she tried to make me ugly. Tried to make me small. Tried to erase me. When I escaped to university, I promised myself I'd never be powerless again. I'd never let anyone control me, hurt me, abandon me. So I became the person who hurt first. Who left first? Who controlled everything? Tun wasn't my first affair. There were others before him, during our marriage. Men I used for validation, for power, for proof that I existed and mattered. I never loved any of them. I'm not sure I ever really loved you either, Chukwudi. I loved what you represented, stability, respect, a family that wasn't broken. But I didn't know how to be the person you needed me to be. The truth about Chioma's paternity, I knew from the beginning. I knew, and I let you bond with her anyway because part of me wanted to punish Tund. Wanted to make him watch another man raise his child. How sick is that? How twisted. I used my own daughter as a weapon. And then when everything started falling apart, when you hired that investigator and started questioning things, I panicked. I found out about your family's adoption secret and I thought, perfect. I'll use this. I'll hurt him the way he's hurting me by leaving. I'll burn it all down. The fire wasn't planned. That day, I was supposed to just take some documents and leave. But when I got there, when I saw our bedroom, the bed where I'd lied to you for years, the photos of us pretending to be happy, I just snapped. I wanted to destroy the evidence of my lies. I wanted to erase who I'd been. Tun tried to stop me. That's the truth. He tried to save me from myself. But I locked us in. I was ready to die rather than face what I'd become. And then Mrs. Adeola came. That woman I'd humiliated, called disgusting things, treated like trash, she saved my life. Why? I still don't understand why. I'm in therapy now. Mandated by the court, but I'm actually trying. The therapist says I have complex PTSD from my childhood. She says I've been running from trauma my whole life, creating chaos so I'd never have to sit still with my pain. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's just excuses. I don't know anymore. What I do know is that Chioma deserves better than me. I see that now. She deserves a father who shows up, who loves unconditionally, who teaches her that family is about more than biology. That's you. You're the parent she needs. I signed away my rights not because I don't love her, but because I love her enough to know I'd damage her if I stayed. Some people aren't meant to be parents. Some people need to heal themselves before they can parent anyone else. I'm one of those people. Maybe in 6 years, when I'm eligible for parole, I'll be someone different. Someone who's done the work, faced the trauma, learned to be human instead of harmful. Or maybe I'll still be broken. I don't know. But either way, thank you. Thank you for being the father I couldn't be. Thank you for protecting our daughter, your daughter, from me. Thank you for choosing justice over revenge, even when I deserved your revenge. If Chioma ever wants to meet me someday, tell her I understand if she doesn't. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her she was always loved, even by a mother who didn't know how to love properly. I hope you build a beautiful life. I hope you find love again, real love, healthy love, the kind that builds up instead of tearing down. You deserve that. You always did. Adanna. Chukwudi read the letter 3 times. Then he carefully placed it back in the notebook and put it in his desk drawer. Not to keep as a treasure, but to save for Chioma, for the day she was old enough to understand that people were complex, that hurt people, that even villains in stories were once children who suffered. The letter didn't erase the pain. It didn't undo the betrayal. But it offered something he hadn't expected, understanding. Not agreement, not forgiveness, but understanding. And maybe that was enough to finally let the anger go. That evening, Chukwudi made dinner with Chioma, spaghetti, her favorite. They ate together, talking about her day, about the foundation he and Uncle Chike were starting, about the possibility of getting a dog. Share your thoughts on. Daddy? Chioma said as they were cleaning up. Are you happy now? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that, baby? Because you smile more. And you laugh. And you don't look sad when you think I'm not watching. She dried a plate carefully. You were sad before, when Mommy lived here. Even when you smiled, you were sad. But now you're happy sad. Like, sad things happen but you're okay anyway. Happy sad, Chukwudi repeated. Yeah, that's exactly what I am. Good things and bad things all mixed together, but choosing to focus on the good. Like spaghetti with vegetables, Chioma said seriously. I don't love the vegetables, but I love the spaghetti, so it's okay. Chukwudi laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Exactly like that, baby girl. Later, after Chioma was asleep, Chukwudi sat on his balcony with a glass of wine and called Chike. How are you doing, brother? I'm good. Actually good. I got Adanna's letter today. And it explained a lot. Didn't fix anything, but explained it. She's taking responsibility, doing therapy, acknowledging the damage. It's more than I expected. Does that change anything for you? Chukwudi thought about it. Not in terms of forgiveness or reconciliation. She'll still serve her sentence, I'll still have sole custody, we'll still move forward separately. But it changes how I carry the story. Makes it less about good versus evil and more about broken people making terrible choices. That's growth, brother. Or exhaustion. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Chukwudi sipped his wine. The CNN interview, I'm in. Let's tell our story. Let's help other families avoid what ours went through. You're sure? I'm sure. The foundation launches next month. We need momentum, visibility, resources. And if our story helps even one family find each other or one person leave a toxic relationship before it destroys them, it's worth it. Then let's do it. They talked for another hour, about the foundation structure, about families already helped by the registry, about Chike's decision to officially relocate to Lagos permanently. About brotherhood and second chances and the family they were building together. When Chukwudi finally went to bed that night, he slept deeply for the first time since the domestic betrayal had exploded into his life. No nightmares. No anxiety. Just rest. The next morning brought news that spread through Lagos like wildfire. Another high-profile couple was getting divorced after the husband discovered his wife's infidelity. The story was everywhere: social media, news sites, radio shows. People were calling it the wicked wife syndrome, referencing Adanna's viral video. Ngozi called Chukwudi into her office. Have you seen the news? Unfortunately, yes. This couple, the Adebayo family, they're asking for help. They want mediation, therapy referrals, legal guidance on how to protect their children through the process. They heard about what happened to you and they don't want to make the same mistakes. Ngozi leaned forward. What if we expanded your role? Made you not just compliance director, but also head of a new family services division? Helping employees navigate divorce, custody issues, domestic problems before they explode into public disgrace. Chukwudi considered it. That's a lot. It is. But you're uniquely qualified. You've lived it. You've survived it. You understand the emotional manipulation, the legal complexity, the need for support systems. She smiled slightly. Plus, it aligns with the Foundation's mission. Helping families stay together when possible, separate healthily when necessary. All right, I'm in. Good. Because there's already a waiting list of people who want to talk to you. Over the following weeks, Chukwudi found himself becoming an unlikely expert in navigating betrayal. Couples came to him for advice. Individuals dealing with infidelity in marriage sought guidance. Parents worried about co-parenting conflict after divorce asked for help. He didn't have all the answers. But he had his story, his scars, and his willingness to be honest about the messy reality of surviving domestic betrayal. The CNN interview aired on a Sunday evening. Chukwudi and Chike sat side by side on camera, telling their story, from the separation at birth to the reunion through crisis. They talked about adoption fraud, about poverty's role in impossible choices, about forgiveness and justice and family. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, the Foundation's website crashed from traffic. Donations poured in from around the world. Families reached out with their own stories of separation and reunion. And most importantly, 3 new matches were made on the registry, siblings finding each other after decades apart. One of those matches was a 60-year-old woman in London and her twin sister in Ghana. They'd been separated at age 3 when their mother died and extended family couldn't afford to raise both girls. For 57 years, each had believed the other was dead. When they finally video-called through the Foundation's platform, Chukwudi and Chike were on the line to facilitate. The moment the sisters saw each other, saw their identical faces aged by time but still unmistakably mirrors, they both started crying. "Is it really you?" one whispered. "It's me. It's really me." After the call, Chukwudi sat in his office for a long time, thinking about the ripple effects of their family's pain. If his parents hadn't been forced to separate their twins, he might never have met Chike. If Adanna hadn't betrayed him so spectacularly, the adoption network might never have been exposed. If Ngozi hadn't disguised herself as a beggar, the corruption might have continued. Tragedy and grace, tangled together like roots of the same tree. 6 months after Adanna's sentencing, Chukwudi received another letter from prison. This one was shorter. "Chukwudi, I saw the CNN interview. You and your brother are doing good work. I'm proud of you, even though I have no right to be. I wanted you to know, I've started facilitating a support group here in prison. Women who've hurt their families, who want to do better but don't know how. We talk about our childhoods, our choices, our paths forward. It's hard. Sometimes I want to quit. But then I think about Chioma and I keep going. My therapist says I'm making progress. Says maybe in a few years I'll be someone who could have supervised visitation with my daughter without damaging her. Maybe. We'll see. Thank you for not blocking my letters. Thank you for reading them. It helps me remember I'm still human, even though I did monstrous things. A. Chukwudi filed this letter with the first one. A record of someone trying to change, trying to heal, trying to become someone different. Whether Adanna would succeed or not wasn't his concern anymore. That was her journey to walk. His journey was different, building the foundation with Chike, raising Chioma, helping families navigate their own betrayals and reunions, creating something good from the wreckage of his marriage. On Chioma's 8th birthday, the Okafor family gathered again, this time in the completed foundation headquarters, a modest office space in Yaba where the registry operated. They decided to celebrate there so Chioma could see the work they were doing, understand that her family's pain had purpose. "This is because of us?" Chioma asked, looking at the photos on the wall, reunited families, smiling faces, people finding each other after decades apart. "This is because of love," Chukwudi corrected. "Because even when bad things happen, we can choose to make good things happen next." Chioma studied the photos thoughtfully. Then she said, "When I grow up, I want to work here. I want to help families find each other." "Then you will," Chike promised his niece. "You absolutely will." That night, as Chukwudi tucked Chioma into bed, she asked the question he'd been expecting for months, "Daddy, do you think you'll ever get married again?" "Maybe someday. If I meet someone who loves us both, who's honest and kind and chooses us every day." He kissed her forehead. "But I'm not in a hurry. Our family is pretty great just as it is." "With Uncle Chike and Grandma and Auntie Amara?" "Exactly. The family we choose, the family we build, the family that chooses us back." "I like that family," Chioma said sleepily. "It's a good family." "It is, baby girl. It really is." Months turned into years. The foundation grew, expanding to 6 African countries and partnering with organizations worldwide. Chike met someone, a lawyer named Amina who worked in human rights, and fell in love. Mama Okafor celebrated her 70th birthday surrounded by all her children and grandchildren. Chioma thrived, growing into a thoughtful, creative child who knew her story and wasn't ashamed of it. And Chukwudi? He dated occasionally, but nothing serious. He focused on his work, his daughter, his family. He learned that wholeness didn't require romance, that he was complete on his own, that the betrayal he'd survived had made him stronger rather than bitter. 3 years after Adanna's sentencing, she became eligible for early release through a rehabilitation program. The parole board contacted Chukwudi for his opinion. He thought about it for a long time. Thought about the letters she'd sent consistently every month, showing genuine growth and change. Thought about the women she'd helped in prison, the awareness she'd raised about childhood trauma and its consequences. Thought about what justice meant versus what revenge wanted. In the end, he wrote to the parole board, "I support her release if she meets all program requirements and continues therapy. She has done harm, but she's also doing the work to heal. I believe in second chances, not because people deserve them, but because transformation is possible. However, I request that she maintain no contact with my daughter until Chioma is old enough to decide for herself whether she wants that relationship." Adanna was released 6 months later. She moved to Abuja, started working with a women's rights organization, and continued her therapy. She sent one final letter to Chukwudi. "Thank you for giving me a chance to become someone better. I hope someday Chioma will want to know me. But if she doesn't, I understand. Either way, I'll keep doing this work, keep helping others avoid the mistakes I made. It's the only way I know to make amends. I hope you're happy. I hope you found love again. You deserve all the happiness I couldn't give you. Be well. Adanna." Chukwudi read the letter once, then put it away. No anger. No pain. Just acceptance that people were complex, that endings could be gentle even after violent beginnings, that closure came in unexpected forms. 5 years after the fire that destroyed his house and exposed his wife's betrayal, Chukwudi stood in the foundation office, looking at a map dotted with pins, each one representing a successful reunion facilitated by their work. Hundreds of pins. Hundreds of families finding each other. Chike came to stand beside him. "We did this, brother. You and me. We did it because of what happened to us. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the loss, it led here. Worth it?" Chukwudi thought about Chioma, now 12 years old and volunteering at the foundation on weekends. He thought about his mother, healthy and happy and surrounded by the family that had scattered and regathered. He thought about the life he'd built from ruins, about the meaning he'd found in wreckage. "Yeah," he said finally. "It was worth it." And in that moment, standing beside his twin brother, looking at evidence of hundreds of healed families, Chukwudi Okafor finally, truly, completely let go of the anger and betrayal that had defined 3 years of his life. He was free. And freedom, he discovered, was better than revenge ever could have been. The end. What did you think of Chukwudi's journey? Comment below. Would you have forgiven Adanna, or demanded maximum punishment? What would you do if you discovered a long-lost twin? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who loves powerful African marriage dramas. Hit that notification bell for more incredible stories of betrayal, redemption, and family. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. Thank you for watching this entire journey. Your support means everything.